Emily Carter was 25 years old when she lost the last place she thought she belonged. The morning had started like any other. The small house outside Willow Creek, Montana, sat quietly beneath a gray sky. Emily washed dishes after breakfast and made a list of errands she planned to run for her aunt. By sunset, everything was gone. A black duffel bag sat beside the front door. Her aunt stood in the hallway with folded arms. The conversation was short. The house was being sold. Emily needed to leave. There were no arguments, no long explanations, just a decision that had apparently been made weeks earlier without her. For years, Emily had helped pay bills, repaired fences, and cared for the property whenever her aunt traveled. She never expected wealth or rewards. She only believed she had a home. Now she stood on the porch with a bag, an old sedan, and less than $300. The deadbolt clicked behind her. The sound followed her all night. For 3 weeks she slept in her car. Some nights she parked beside a river. Other nights she parked near truck stops, where the lights stayed on until morning. She searched for apartments. Everything cost too much. She searched for jobs. Most offered too little. One rainy afternoon, she sat inside the public library, using a computer to browse local listings. A notice on the county auction page caught her attention. Abandoned property, fire damaged general store. Assis convictions. The photograph showed a blackened building standing alone near the edge of town. Most people would have scrolled past. Emily clicked. Something about the place held her attention. Maybe it was because it looked forgotten. Maybe it was because she felt forgotten too. The auction was 3 days later. On the morning of the sale, only a handful of people attended. Most came out of curiosity. The old store had burned nearly 20 years earlier. No one wanted it. The roof had partially collapsed. Windows were boarded shut. The lot was overgrown with weeds. When bidding began, the numbers stayed low. A few people laughed. Someone called it a pile of ashes with walls. Emily listened quietly, then she raised her hand. Minutes later, she owned the building. The final price left her nearly broke. As she signed the paperwork, fear settled heavily in her chest. What had she done? The answer came the next morning. She unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The air smelled of wet wood and old smoke. Sunlight pushed through holes in the roof. Broken shelves leaned against cracked walls. Everything looked ruined, but it belonged to her. For the first time in weeks, she felt something stronger than fear. She felt possibility. Emily spent every day cleaning. She hauled trash outside. She removed damaged boards. She swept away years of dust and debris. The work was exhausting. Her hands blistered. Her back ached. Still, she returned every morning. On the 10th day, her shovel struck something beneath a collapsed section of flooring. Metal. She knelt beside the spot. After several minutes of digging, she uncovered a small wooden box. The box was badly worn, but still intact. Inside rested a brass key wrapped carefully in faded cloth. Emily stared at it. The key was old, very old. Someone had hidden it deliberately. She turned it over in her hands. There were no labels, no markings, just smooth brass darkened by time. That night she could not stop thinking about it. Why hide a key beneath the floor? What did it open? The next day she asked longtime residents. No one knew. An elderly neighbor remembered rumors about the store before the fire. According to local stories, the original owner had been secretive. People claimed parts of the building were closed to customers. Most dismissed the stories as gossip. Emily did not. She returned to the store and began searching carefully. The key had survived for a reason. Somewhere, a lock was waiting. Days passed. Then she noticed something unusual near the back wall. The bricks sounded hollow when tapped. Several appeared newer than the surrounding masonry. Her pulse quickened. Using a hammer and chisel, she removed one brick. Then another. Then another. Behind the wall was empty space. A hidden staircase emerged from the darkness. Emily grabbed a flashlight. Dust floated through the beam as she descended. Stairs led to a basement room untouched by fire. The air was cool and still. Wooden shelves lined the walls. Metal cabinets stood in rows. Boxes filled every corner. For a moment she simply stared. It felt like stepping backward through time. Then she noticed a small steel door. A lock waited at its center. Her hand trembled slightly as she inserted the brass key. The mechanism clicked. The door opened. Inside were hundreds of documents, records, letters, photographs, journals, maps. The collection appeared carefully organized. Whoever hid them wanted them protected. Emily spent weeks reading. The deeper she looked, the more surprising the records became. Many dated back nearly a century. They documented the earliest years of Willow Creek. Names appeared repeatedly. Families who had built farms. Families who had disappeared. Families no one talked about anymore. One evening she discovered a journal that changed everything. The entries described land deals involving several influential town founders. At first the information seemed ordinary. Then details emerged. Signatures had been forged. Property boundaries altered. Ownership records manipulated. Land belonging to struggling families had quietly been taken and transferred to powerful men. The stolen property became the foundation of much of the town's wealth. Emily read the pages twice, then 3 times. The evidence was overwhelming. She felt sick. Generations had lived with a false version of local history. The truth had been hidden beneath a burned store. Word of the discovery spread quickly. Some residents were fascinated. Others became uncomfortable. A few became angry. Several descendants of the men named in the records insisted the documents should remain private. They argued the past should stay buried. Emily disagreed. The families who lost everything never had that choice. Pressure mounted. Pandon calls arrived late at night. People warned her to walk away. Some suggested the records would only create division. But every time Emily considered quitting, she looked at the brass key. The object reminded her why she started. Forgotten things deserved to be found. Eventually, the town council organized a public meeting. Residents packed the community center, every seat filled. People stood along walls. The atmosphere felt heavy. Emily carried several boxes of records to the front of the room. Then she presented the evidence. Hours passed. Documents were examined. Photographs were displayed. Property maps were compared. The facts became impossible to deny. Many residents sat silently. Others wiped tears from their eyes. Several families learned for the first time why their grandparents had lost farms and homes generations earlier. The room felt different by the end of the night. Not divided. Awakened. Truth had arrived. And truth demanded recognition. Over the following months, local historians worked with descendants and officials to preserve the records. Historical markers were installed. Lost families received public acknowledgement. Stories erased from town memory returned to their rightful place. Something else changed too. People began helping Emily restore the store. Carpenters volunteered weekends. Retired electricians offered assistance. Neighbors donated materials. The building that everyone once ignored became a community project. Piece by piece, the old structure came back to life. New windows replaced broken ones. Fresh paint covered smoke-blackened walls. The roof was rebuilt. The empty rooms filled with light. 1 year after Emily purchased the property, the store reopened. Residents gathered outside for the celebration. Children ran across the sidewalk. Families shared food and stories. The building looked completely different, yet one thing remained unchanged. Inside, near the entrance, a small glass display case held an old brass key. Visitors often stopped to examine it. Many asked why such an ordinary object occupied a place of honor. Emily always gave the same answer: because without that key, the truth would still be hidden. As evening settled over Willow Creek, warm light shone from the store windows. Emily stood outside and watched people come and go. A year earlier, she had been sleeping in her car, wondering where she belonged. Now laughter filled the building she saved. The town had recovered part of its history. Families had recovered part of their dignity, and Emily had found something she never expected to discover inside a burned-down store. Home. The old key remained in its glass case for years afterward, a reminder that sometimes the things people throw away still hold extraordinary value, and sometimes the places that look completely destroyed are only waiting for someone brave enough to open the door.